Welcome back to hour number 2 of the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA. We still continue to see protests around the country in different ways on the death of Michael Brown and also on Eric Garner now, the I Can't Breathe shirts and the different NBA players who have decided to put that out there when they came out to warm up the other night. And the question that a lot of us have asked the last couple of days is, what is the message that we are supposed to get? I read this morning, as I said, where one person said, well, the reason for all this problem right now is capitalism. The capitalism is really to blame. And I'm wondering again, okay, explain that to me. How is capitalism to blame? And so there's a lot of these different things being thrown out, and it becomes kind of a catch-all cause where you say, okay, let's throw my cause du jour in there as well. Well, maybe it's not quite all that it appears. And so as we search for the message, I bring in today Wayne Dupree. And Wayne Dupree is a member of the Project 21 Black Leadership Network. He's better known on the internet social media circles as the News Ninja. And he definitely speaks his mind. And I got to tell you, I read a piece that he wrote, and we're going to talk about it today. Hey, Ferguson, is anyone listening? That might be one of the most concise and most interesting pieces that I have read on this whole subject along the way. And we welcome this morning Wayne Dupree to the Gary Sutton Show. Wayne, great to have you in. Good morning to you.
Hey, thank you for having me this morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How'd you ever get the name News Ninja, by the way? A lot of people would be asking that one, okay?
You know what? My children, I have twin girls and I have a son, and they used to do karate classes. And just when and I love the news. I love the news, and it seemed like all the movies that we were watching around the house had something to do with a ninja. So I put both of the, I was sitting down one day and I put both of the names together, News Ninja, and then I came up with the tagline, assassinating liberal lies with documented facts. So
so you sneak up on them and then nail them, right?
There we go. They don't see me coming, because you know how the media says black conservatives, black Republicans don't exist.
Right.
So, hey, sneak up on them and shower them with facts and walk away with a smile on your face.
You know what's interesting, and you kind of get to that in your article a little bit, but you said about people might call you an Uncle Tom, which is one of the things that people do. It's amazing to me that if you happen to be black and you happen to be a conservative, you happen to believe in ideas different from the mainstream media and from the mainstream thought by most black voters in this country, that somehow you're no longer black and you're no longer on their side, and therefore you have to be demonized and taken out. I'm always amazed by that.
Yeah, they figure, that I talk white and I want to be white, and, I don't have the black language anymore, which I really don't understand what that means. But, they want to try to make me look bad, because there is an audience out there. Mm-hmm. There is an audience that is listening. They might not accept everything, but they're listening, and it's marinating in their head things that we are saying. So when you have these agitators like the ones in Ferguson that are going to come up on social media, on Facebook and Twitter, and they're going to call us Uncle Toms and the major word is, you're just stupid. You don't make any sense. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, sure, we make sense. We just don't subscribe to their thinking.
One of the things that you wrote in your piece here toward the end, you said, I don't hate being black. In fact, I believe blacks are capable of far more than we're currently allowed to embrace. And then you said, I am as proud of who I am as anyone who takes pride in their identity and cultural heritage. But as long as I witness the black community being manipulated by the media and those with political aspirations into excusing their failures and learned dependence, one of the great lines I've read, and learned dependence, I will provoke a discussion in vocal and provocative ways. Right. I thought it was just one of the best paragraphs I've ever read. The learned dependence and the idea that people with political aspirations can kind of lead black people around by the nose here and somehow keep them in a dependent kind of situation?
I have felt like that, and when a whole lot of minorities get mad when you use the word plantation.
Right.
That's because of the pride factor. They don't want to be told that they're being led around. They don't want to be given the truth that the social programs have been killing the communities for the last 50-plus years. They don't want to hear that. And when you tell them that, then, well, you're talking too harsh. You don't need to speak. You don't need to make them feel bad. Well, guess what? They've been brought along on milk and cookies for the last 50-plus years. Somebody has to stand up and say, "Listen, it's time to be an adult. It's time to pull those britches up and start building a house." Taking personal responsibility for your actions and your family, and making sure that you are not leaning on somebody for things that come into your house or things that come into your life.
The name of this article that you wrote is called "Hey Ferguson, Is Anyone Listening?" And you use as the crux of it Charles Barkley's lines when he came out last week, and he called the Ferguson rioters scumbags, and he said these are the rioters who looted and burned approximately 20 buildings in Ferguson, crippling small businesses and causing yet unknown financial damages. And a lot of the media came out and said, how could he do that? How could he say these things? And, of course, the media felt like they had to go out and try to destroy Charles Barkley, or at least take some pretty good shots at him for calling them scumbags.
Yep.
So take us from there into the article on, why that wasn't wrong, why, Barkley was getting to a very serious point here.
It's a point that has been made by many people. It's just that he basically had the pulpit at the time, and knowing Charles, he doesn't hold back his word.
That's correct, yes.
And I and along the line of a whole lot of other black conservatives and Republicans, we don't hold back what we think because, like I said, people have been treated like babies for a long time. Now, yeah, guess what? Again, that might be harsh, but what Barkley came out and said was the truth. There is a culture out there that just wants, well, maybe they don't want, but all they know is to follow. All they know is to ask for. All they know is to be needy. Now, is that on them? Possibly, because after you reach a certain age, you have to become an adult. You have to. You can't be, and you hear about from the progressives. You hear that everybody has a fair shot. It's just that some people have that drive, and then some people run into situations, as we all do. But we as Americans, at least we can reach out to them and say, "Listen, we understand that you're going through a hard time. We can help you get back up, but we're not going to hold you and take you on for a ride for the rest of your life." On
the other side, Wayne, we have people who are out there right now protesting around the country who have the narrative, and you mentioned in your article here, of victimization, oppression, and racial tension, and that somehow they are oppressed and kept down. And so when Barkley says something like that, or when you say something straight up, it sounds like a foreign language to these people.
Exactly. Because
they are used to being in that particular narrative. How do you get them out of that? I mean, that seems to be the most popular narrative, and it seems to me that it's kind of like, I'm going to try to get off drugs by taking more drugs. I mean, there's not even an effort here to try to get off the drugs of oppression and the drugs of dependency. That you'd sooner see yourself being a victim than you would be, as you said, an adult kind of standing up and getting out there and being independent on your own.
How the progressives have done over the past 50 years, they keep repeating the same thing. They have created a land of zombies, saying the same thing every day on television for years. How do we fix that? Number one, we have to show people through our actions, but we have to keep on talking. We can't shut up. Just because somebody says that we're stupid, just because somebody calls us Uncle Toms, just because somebody calls us a traitor, that they don't know anything about us. They are attacking our truth. They are attacking our words. They're attacking our facts because they don't. Again, that pride factor comes in there. They don't want to be told that they're wrong. The black community grew up in the 60s before me, but they grew up in the 60s with black pride.
Mm-hmm.
They taught that to their kids. When you tell somebody, look, you've been going about it wrong. A few people will get it. Most people won't because of their pride.
You know, the message that was taught, though, in the 60s, a lot of that came from Martin Luther King Jr. I was around during the 60s and remembered admiring the man for standing up and saying what a lot of us already believe, that, you know, it's about the content of character, not color of skin.
Right.
And that and that's what he was telling people was, you know, we're all at the table of brotherhood, right? I mean, we all should be doing things and looking at each other as Americans, which I have believed my whole life. And I think a lot of other people have too. And so when people say to you, well, you're not speaking black or you're not acting black anymore, whatever, I mean, what does that mean? Aren't we all supposed to just be Americans first? I mean, this whole idea that being black is more important than being an American and all having kind of the same chances. And I'm not saying the road's not going to be rocky for people. And I'm not going to say there's not going to be idiots along the way who are going to be racist. I'm not going to say any of that because we know that would be naive. But the idea that we're all Americans first and we're all fellow human beings first in this country, all citizens, isn't that the most important thing?
I grew up in a school system that we prayed and we said the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, those were things that shaped me. I am patriotic to the bone. I joined the military. I was in the Air Force for 8 years. I love serving this country.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I loved it. I love serving the country, and I would do it again. What has been lost over the last 30 years, 35 years, is the patriotism for this country. You know, they have skirted the lines of accepting everybody in from other countries and accepting what their culture is, and instead of telling them, listen, thank you for coming over, thank you for wanting to be here, but now you're in America and you have to live by American rules. Nobody out there on, you know, these liberal pundits, none of them say, well, if they left an oppressive land, why would they want to come over here and start practicing the same thing? That doesn't make sense.
You get to some very important things in your article about, you mentioned Andrea Mitchell from NBC on Meet the Press, who talked about the continued narrative of racial strife and division. That appears to be the most important thing to the media, instead of talking about, you know, the real physical evidence is out there and that was presented, for example, the grand jury in the Michael Brown situation. And these people continue to want to kind of ignore that. It's almost like, you know, in opinion journalism of today, and even to some extent what we saw yesterday in the Terror Report, you put out what you want to happen, and then you construct the facts underneath to conveniently make sure that fits and brings out that conclusion, right?
Exactly. I totally agree with that.
So when we come back, I want to talk to you about the other parts of your article here on what you said really is the problem. What are some of the problems that are facing black Americans out there right now? And what do we do to get at those? Wayne Dupree has written a great article. It's called Hey Ferguson, Is Anyone Listening? You can check that out, by the way, at thenationalcenter.org if you want to, and go in there and find Wayne Dupree and read the article. Hey Ferguson, Is Anyone Listening? He'll be right back with us here on the Gary Sutton Show on News Radio 910 WSBA. Welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA. Our special guest this morning, Wayne Dupree, who's known as a news ninja, has also written a great article here. Hey Ferguson, Is Anyone Listening? He's also a member of Project 21 Black Leadership Network, and with us here this morning on the Gary Sutton Show. I want to bring in one caller very quickly here, Wayne, for you. Mike in Winterstown. Mike, you're on the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good morning, Gary. I'm just calling in. Fantastic guest you got there, and I just want to mention a point here. I know they say calling him an Uncle Tom, and in other words, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Martin Luther King, wasn't he a black conservative Republican?
No, he was not a Republican, but I also don't think he was a Democrat. Wayne maybe can correct me on that, but Wayne, go ahead.
No, yeah, he was an independent based on what his niece had said. Actually, she Dr. Alveda King had mentioned in an article about a couple months ago that she mistakenly said that he was a Republican, and it got taken and spread around, and she regretted saying that his father was more on the Republican side than what he was, but he was independent, is what she said.
There was a line here about King and Mike and Wayne. It said, King was not a partisan and never endorsed any political candidate. In a 1958 interview, King said, quote, I don't think the Republican Party is a party full of the almighty God, nor is the Democratic Party. They both have weaknesses, and I'm not inextricably bound to either party, unquote. That's kind of the biggest thing that he ever said about the whole idea about being on that side. But I think you come back to Martin Luther King Jr., Mike, and Wayne. I think here's a man that didn't have to use a party to figure out what was right or wrong.
Right, exactly. And like you say, it's good to hear this gentleman here today. I mean,
thank you.
You know, talking of the patriotism, I think is something that's definitely not talked about enough. I mean, I was raised in the Baltimore County school system, and you know, we were raised on all the wonderful, fantastic history of the city of Baltimore, whether it was the Revolutionary War or the War of 1812, or
right.
The first folks to land. Of course, I had the Martin Luther King thing wrong, but we were always told some of the first folks to land at D-Day was the Maryland National Guard or whatever, or a unit out of Maryland and Northern Virginia. But you know, we were raised, you know, to really be proud of the country that you live in. It's
right.
Good to hear other people still feel that way.
Well, thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate you calling this morning. And, you know, I think the point here is you don't have to be a Republican or Democrat to have a decent idea about what the country's about, Wayne, correct?
That's true. Now, that is true. You know what? Actually, there are some Democrats that do love the country. They do.
I know there are.
It's just that supporting a platform that boos God and that supports abortion, and that also goes along with a party that uses racist innuendos and tactics to get their message across, defending that's where I have my problem.
You talk in your article, this is a most important part. You said, I truly believe that America's black community wants change, but there's a failure to encourage change in the most needed areas from within. And as long as the media continues to polarize the black community with issues such as Ferguson, meaningful dialogue isn't possible. And then you go on to talk about what some of this change is. Get into some of that with us this morning if you can.
Well, I mean, you know, actually, the first thing, I was listening to Thomas Sowell a while ago, and
great man.
He was like, you know, the civil rights movement won. It was won in the 60s. Now, what didn't happen is that they didn't go and work on the economic side. Mm-hmm. And that's what really plagues our communities these days, because mostly all the money is being spent on rims and trucks and clothes and chains and all these things instead of entrepreneurship. I mean, so many kids are in the minority communities are putting their monies toward the wrong thing and then blaming the employer or blaming white Republicans or white Republicans, blaming them for the situation when the Democrats have been the one that's been promising them all these changes.
And so you're not really attacking the priorities, the economics of the whole thing, the idea of the family. The black nuclear family has taken a beating. Fatherless families, you mentioned in your article.
You know, in the 60s, I don't know if you remember, there was a movie called Claudine. It had James Earl Jones and
yes, I do.
Diane
Actually,
Carroll. Yeah. That movie was a dramatic comedy, but if you really look at it these days, because back in the day, if you watched it in the movies or you loved it, you laughed, you thought it was funny, the music soundtrack was great, you were dancing to some of the songs. But if you look at it now these days, it told the truth. You had a black woman with about 6 or 7 kids that the social worker was coming to see if there was a man in the house. If there was a man in the house, no money was going to get paid, and probably the benefits would stop. If she was to go and work or try to seek education, the money would stop. And that's the way it was in America. I mean, there's a song for that movie, too, called Stay Away From Me, Mr. Welfare Man. Mm-hmm. People danced to it, thought it was a great song, but they didn't listen to the words. You know, the policies of the liberal agenda have been pushing this for so long through TV shows, movies, literature, and people have been lulled to sleep.
You know, one of the things that I hear people say all the time, we're going to go just a little bit long in this segment, by the way, but one of the things I hear people say, Wayne, is, I want to have that discussion. You want to have that discussion? I want to have that discussion, which usually to me is code speak for I don't want to have that discussion.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad that you said that. You know, I am tired of hearing pundits, white pundits, black pundits on the liberal side saying, well, we need to have a conversation. You know, damn it, I'm tired of having a conversation. I want solutions. I want us to at least try some things, and if they don't work, well, guess what? Go back to the go back to the table and start putting in some more solutions. You know, this conversation they've been having a conversation for over 50 years. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere.
And to think the conversation is somehow the solution is the whole misguided part. You mentioned that in your article, that as long as a significant number of black Americans embrace the misguided notion that openly discussing our shortcomings is somehow taboo, and will continue living under the unnecessary status of victimhood. And then you said, and this, I thought this was maybe one of the most brilliant lines in the whole thing. Promotion of this groupthink mentality, coupled with the left's ability to control the media narrative, closes the door on real and productive conversation. This mindset also keeps Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and like-minded folk in positions of prominence while they do nothing for our community as a whole. In fact, all this prevents us from ever truly embracing our potential.
If you look at Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, when was the last time you ever saw them go into the black community and say, let's bring in some Republicans and let's try to come up with a solution to take care of this job situation? You won't see it.
Yeah.
You won't see it. You won't see the black clergy say the same thing. They won't do it because they are running a game. They're running a game. Al Sharpton is supposed to be marching on D.C. This Saturday for the new civil rights movement. This guy, look, this guy, man, this guy. You know, I mean, I'm trying to be nice. I
hear you thinking. Yeah.
This guy is really running a major game on the black community now. Are all black liberals? Do all black liberals support Al Sharpton? No. But he has been, you know, so many people say, well, where's his church? His church is MSNBC.
Yeah.
That's his pulpit. Every time he gets up in front of that TV, and spreads his hate about Republicans and stuff, that's his pulpit.
Well, you know what's interesting? As long as you have division, he's got a job. When division is over, he's out of a gig.
And runs to the quickest thing. He will make something racist, even though it's not. Ferguson was not racist.
Yeah.
Ferguson was not racist.
No, it was not. And again, we don't want to look at the facts. And
right.
But you know, the problem is we have people around the country now saying, well, we're protesting. We can't breathe. You know, stop. Don't shoot. And yet we say, many of us sitting out there, not just white, but many white and black people together. May I just combine them all into one thing called Americans? Thank you very much. Many Americans are sitting out there saying, what are you trying to tell me? What are you saying to me? I'm listening, but are you really saying anything? And again, it comes back to the name of your article. Hey, Ferguson, is anyone listening? We are listening, but what is it that you have to say? And one of the points you make at the end of your article here, and this is the final point, are you brave enough to hear what he and I have to say, he being Charles Barkley and the rest of us, when we do say, hey, there's another side to the story, not just the one that's being portrayed around the country?
It's another side to the story. There's another end of the story. There have to be a whole lot more bold fathers and mothers to be able to talk to their kids on a daily basis and say, listen, this is not the end. Let's go ahead and go through financial classes. Let's go ahead and take these problems and let's take them and turn them into success. There's nothing wrong with being successful. There's nothing wrong with wanting the best that's for your family. The government can't give you what is best for your family. Remember, if the government gives, the government can take.
Yeah.
You don't want You don't want that in your life. You really don't.
Yeah, especially when the government gives, and they have certain mandates attached to it, and it says, okay, for 3 years we're going to fund you, and then your community is going to have to take it over yourself, and you're going to have to pick it up, and we're still going to have our hands on the quality of what you're going to do. So, yeah, it's kind of like making a deal with the devil, the old Faustian bargaining we talk about. Wayne, a really interesting conversation. Always like having you on. I think it's your second time with us, and we appreciate it, and we look forward to getting you back again. Keep letting your voice be heard out there. I think it's a great voice that's out there in the community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you.
You too now. Take care.
Thank you. Wayne Dupree with us here on the Gary Sutton Show, the News Ninja.